So Annie asked me this afternoon, what should I sing? This is something related to the parsha of the week. And I said, can you sing for me, Katonti Mikol HaChasadim? This is something in the Torah that Jacob says. He says in front of God, I'm so humble, I'm so little, and you gave me so much mercy. So it's with humbleness and with your permission that I will take the next 7-8 minutes and tell you a little bit about a beautiful story in my life, and I hope it would make some sense to you too. The title of tonight's sermon was big. How I met 3 popes and 3 times Pope Francis. You know, as your rabbi, one of your rabbis, I've never spoken lengthy from this pulpit about my journey in inter-religious affairs. This Shabbat, following the passing of the Pope, a person I met 3 times, I feel it's time. As you may all know, I grew up in Argentina. I attended a Jewish day school all my life, and I was always surrounded by Jewish kids. By the time I was 18, I had already visited Israel 10 times. I attended Maccabi. I was trained as a madrich there, and I went even to a high school, a Jewish high school. The Shoah had a huge impact on my family. On my father's side, every single member was murdered. When I say every single member, I mean all. I remember my father saying Kaddish the entire week of Pesach because he knew that the Nazis entered that week his town, and he never heard from his family again. I remember my father telling me that the priest in his hometown was so anti-Semitic that on Christmas Eve, his sermon will be filled with such hateful rhetoric that Jews were afraid to leave their homes that night, fearing a pogrom might break out. That for many years was my image of the Catholic Church, and in many ways, it was accurate. Until 1965, the church had not officially rejected anti-Semitism. And while it was responsible for the Shoah, it created enough hate over 20 centuries to make it possible. The only times I ever entered churches growing up were as a tourist visiting the grand cathedrals of Europe with my parents, never to attend a service. Fast forward 1990. I became a rabbi. Argentina was struck twice by Islamic fundamentalist terrorism in 1992, 1994. By then, I was serving as the rabbi of the largest conservative synagogue in Latin America. In those difficult years, I began to see who the real friends of the Jewish people were and who were not. I started building bridges with different religious groups, including the Catholic Church. My first major interfaith moment happened on April 21st, 1997. I received a phone call from the Archbishop of Neuquén. Neuquén is in the south of Argentina, it's Caduce's land. He said to me, Mario, I need you to come. What happened? I asked. The police had killed a young woman, Teresita Rodriguez, 24 years old. She was just observing a demonstration for higher teacher salaries. She wasn't protesting. They just killed her. And people are furious. They are ready to burn my city. I need as many religious leaders here as possible. I flew to the end of the world. The funeral took place in a huge gymnasium. When I entered, people were singing, Todos por Teresa, todos por Teresa, todos por Teresa, quiero que mi país sea feliz con amor y libertad. Everybody's here for Teresa. I want my country to finally have peace. I entered the gymnasium. They had no idea who I was, but they saw the kippah. And I received the loudest applause of my life. 40,000 people. The Jew had come from across the country to say that their pain matters. And then because of that, they changed the lyrics and everybody sang, Todos por la AMIA. Todos por la AMIA. Everybody is here for the Jewish Federation, they sang. And that day, I learned one of the most powerful lessons in life. If you want people to stand by your side, for your causes, you need to be with them when they need you in their own causes. A year later, March 1998, just 4 years after the AMIA was bombed, the families of the victim asked Bishop Justo Laguna, the most influential, charismatic bishop, to lead a mass in honor of the murdered. His response was stunning. He said, why do you want me to lead a Catholic service? Call Rabbi Rojzman and we will hold an interreligious service. He called me and I accepted. Thousands were watching the service to the different TV stations. And during the ceremony, the bishop said, if we Catholics had rung the bells of the cathedrals in Europe in 1939, the Shoah might not have happened. But we did not. I was stunned. A bishop publicly acknowledging the church silence? When it was my turn to speak, I said, in reference to the lack of justice in both anti-Semitic attacks and the role of the judiciary system, the following. The courts continue to laugh in the face of orphans, widows, fathers and mothers whose dearest loved ones were taken from them. Is there anything more anti-religious than perceiving that your country's judicial system is like a serpent that bites only those who have no shoes? By the way, when you leave the synagogue, everybody will be able to take one of those books which we left there for you. It's a book I wrote with the bishop. When the service ended, the TV anchors rushed over to interview us. Remember, it was the same time when Pope John Paul II asked forgiveness from the Jewish people for the lack of Catholic sensitivity during the Shoah. And then the anchors started asking us questions. One of them asked, how do you think the relationship will continue? The bishop answered, I will have to invite the rabbi to visit the Vatican. Then turned to me and asked, will you accept? And I replied, yes, but with one condition, that we first go to Jerusalem, where everything began. They looked at the bishop and he nodded. I couldn't sleep the entire night. The next day I called him and I said, do you mean it? Yes. We just need to find the right dates. I had already planned a mission to Israel with my congregation for the 50th anniversary of the State of Israel, and everything that I'm telling you, you can ask Cacho and Marga, who I didn't know they will be here. They were in that mission. ¿Se acuerdan? ¿Cómo no? I began working on that plan. April 29 was the chosen date. He agreed. 2 weeks later, he calls me. Tenemos un problema. We have a problem. I received a letter from the Vatican saying it will not be appropriate for a bishop to attend an official celebration in Israel given the situation with the Palestinians. He told me there might be strong pressure to cancel the trip. And I told him, that will be a very big problem and a very, very bad message to the Jewish community. He said, let me do one more thing. I'll go tomorrow to speak directly to my archbishop, my superior. By the way, his superior was Jorge Bergoglio, the man who will later become Pope Francis. And the bishop told him, don't worry, go ahead. And we went. And you can check later. We went to Yad Vashem, and we went to the Kotel, and we went to the Holy Sepulchre. We went to Beit Atfotzot, which is now Ano. And we even did the Via Dolorosa with the 14 stations. And he asked me, have you been here before? And I said, no. And then he asked me, why do you think you never came here? You live here for 6 years. And the first answer that came to my mind is that the message that came out from this place was, you killed him. So I didn't want to come here. And I look at me and answer, remember, no one can kill God. We left Israel. Rome was very exciting. By the way, I was in charge. Is this boring or I can go? No. I knew just I need to, for my... The deal was that I will take care monetarily with the Israel part, and he will take care of Rome. In Rome, we stayed in the Casa del Clero, which is a house near the Vatican where only clergymen, cardinals. So every morning, I will go to have breakfast with 30, 40 cardinals from all over the world, and he will go across the street to have the best cappuccino in Rome because he didn't like this, but I wanted to be with the people. So you will be able to read it, but one of the most powerful meetings was with the head rabbi of Rome, Rabbi Eliot Toaf, a delicious Orthodox Italian rabbi, and the highlight was the visit to the Pope John Paul II. I thank him for everything he had done for bringing Jews and Catholics closer. He wanted to know from where in Poland were my parents. I knew how deeply the Holocaust had affected him. You know how much you know about his story. He was a fan of soccer. He used to play soccer. 6 Catholic kids, 5 Jewish kids. One day, the Jewish kids didn't show up. And he asked why. And the answer, you know why. Because they were taken to Auschwitz. So he converted his entire priesthood to bring Jews and Catholics together. Now, when a publishing house heard that we are leaving to Jerusalem and to Rome, they send an editor to be with us. So we will do whatever needs to be done during the day, and at night, he will ask us questions. And from that question and answers, they published a book. When we came back, they offered us to have a TV show Sunday nights. So I think we did good stuff because we interviewed from a spiritual point of view people that only a rabbi and a bishop can ask questions. For example, Presidente Alfonsín and several different personalities. That's not the point. The point is that we visited tens of universities and colleges, and I saw that a bishop and a rabbi together was still shocking to many people. What I enjoyed the most was when the activity was done and I was just with him in the restaurant and having the chance to speak. I remember one day I asked him a very spicy question. Do you really believe that Mary was a virgin? He smiled. Imagine, he has the Tzelem. And I asked him if Mary was virgin. He smiled and said, well, what the text wants to tell us is that she was naive, that she was pure, and that she was whole. So I needed to give something in return. And I said, it's hard for me to believe that Sarah became a mother at the age of 90, when the text says that she stopped having the period. So we both agreed to the same situation, that a text can be true without being a fact. One day, in January 2007, we were already in Miami. He called me and said, I have an audience with Pope Benedict XVI. Would you like to come with me? I checked my calendar. No bar mitzvahs, no weddings. I spoke with the main rabbi. I was free. So I traveled with him and brought a letter from the students in Ochper Prep. You have the letter here, where they approach His Holiness and say that they will love to work with other kids to make this place a better world. 3 days later, the Pope answered. By the way, when we finished the encounter with the German Pope, I already requested from the Argentinian embassy if they can give me a room, because I wanted to chat with the kids from Ochper Prep. And Dr. Cuenca, which is a genius creating these moments, it was a beautiful moment of interchange between a rabbi who just delivered their own letter to the kids. On November 2nd, 2011, the bishop, my friend, called me, and now listen. And he said to me, tomorrow I'm going to die. I say to him, come on, what do you mean you're going to die? Tomorrow I'm going to die. And I ask him why. Because I have him heart surgery. So I told him, don't do it. He said, I have to do it because I will die anyway if I don't do it. And then he said to me, I want to tell you 2 things before I go. One thing was something very nice about myself, doesn't matter. And the other one was the following. I want you to know that the Archbishop of Buenos Aires is a saint, a real saint. And he told me a secret of something that the Archbishop of Buenos Aires helped him to solve a tough situation. Well, the next day, he died. A year later, the Archbishop of Buenos Aires became the Pope. And I wanted so badly to tell that I knew how good he was to my friend, but I was fixated on doing it on the day of the bishop's yahrzeit. I wanted to pray for my friend, the bishop, with the Pope at the Vatican in Hebrew. I requested a meeting. It was granted. And here you have Moishele from the Jewish Day School, from Maccabi, how he ended up meeting Pope Francis for the first time. We pray in Hebrew. I told him the story. We both cried. 2 years later, I wanted Gisela to meet him. He gave us another audience. And the truth is that the excuse for the meeting face-to-face was I wanted so badly to bring a delegation from Beth Torah. And I knew that the only way to accomplish that was face-to-face. There's no way to ask the bishop, give him the letter, the secretary. It will take years. And that's why, on October 2017, 47 of us went to meet Pope Francis. Tomorrow is his funeral. As the previous dean of the Seminario Rabínico, Dr. Daniel Feinstein, wrote yesterday, in a world marked by polarization, historical grievances, and new forms of hatred, Pope Francis has embodied with humility and resolve a moral voice committed to encounter mutual respect and human dignity. As a Jew, it's not my place to comment on internal matters of Catholic doctrine, nor is mine to assess whether he was too liberal or too conservative. But it is my place, out of ethics and gratitude, to acknowledge and thank him for his generous contribution to the Jewish-Christian dialogue, to the defense of the persecuted, to the care of the planet, and to a spirituality of compassion. His doors in Argentina were always open for us Jews. These were not merely acts of interreligious courtesy, a living manifestation of a theology of coexistence There can be no genuine dialogue without affection, without risk, without openness. And he took that risk. He engaged in deep conversation with rabbis on spiritual and contemporary issues, participated in Jewish celebration, and publicly defended the memory of the Shoah and the fight against anti-Semitism. Beyond the headlines, Francis has been a bridge, a voice that reflected painful frustration. Following his death, some voices within the Jewish world, impatient, biased, simply uninformed, or some of them who expected more in the conflict Gaza-Israel, started to attack him. This criticism, in many cases, revealed shallow understanding of how Vatican diplomacy functions. This is not only unfair, it's short-sighted. It hurt him, the hostages, and it hurt him, the 1,000 people killed in Gaza. There was a meeting actually scheduled with the head rabbis of Israel for March to lower the tension, but he was hospitalized and needed to cancel. From my Jewish identity, I thank him for reminding us that religion is not a trench, but a promise. For reminding us that holiness begins with the dignity of the other, for going beyond national egoism, for reclaiming the gift of human brotherhood. Let me conclude with a joke that the Pope told me when he still wasn't the Pope, during an interfaith gathering in Buenos Aires. He said the following with his charismatic smile. There was a priest who gave sermons every Sunday, and week after week he found a way to blame the Jews, no matter the topic. Every sermon was an anti-Semitic attack. So it goes so bad that one Sunday, as he was going on and on again, Jesus climbed down from the cross, looked at the congregation, turned to Mary, who was standing at the foot of the cross, and said, "Mommy, let's go, they don't want us here." That joke reminds us of a painful truth. How often religion has been used to divide instead of to heal. But here's the deeper truth. We are condemned to live together, Jews and Christians, Muslims and Hindus, believers and skeptics. We share the same planet, the same bread, the same fears and dreams for our children. We are not going anywhere. So either we keep building walls of suspicion or we start building bridges of understanding. Unity doesn't mean sameness. It means the courage to see the other not as a threat, but as a partner in the human story. We don't need to agree on everything. We just need to see each other, listen, and refuse to let ancient wounds write the future. Like Elie Wiesel once said, the opposite of love is not hate, it's indifference. So let's not be indifferent. Let's care enough to talk, to argue with respect, to cry together when there is pain, and to rejoice when we take even one step closer to peace. After all, if we are condemned to live together, let's make that reality a blessing. Shabbat Shalom.